Thursday, the 11th of August, 2022. I think it was 23 a minute. This evening's late night preview show, we are taking a look at Saturday's fixture against the Swans and also looking back against the shit show against Barrow as the pool were dumped out of the Carabao Cup at the first hurdle. I'm John Aspinall. This is the Seaside podcast. Thursday night preview show, Blackpool versus Swansea.
Well, it's already changed the world. A small town from the north of England with a great tradition.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a show on Thursday night preview show. Past the watershed, past the 9 p.m. Unmute Tim, so we can actually swear officially. But Tim, no C-bombs, I think was the only prerequisites. There's no nappers around, is there?
There's only one person allowed to C-bomb on this show, and if we ever play Fleetwood again, which hopefully we never do, then it'll be allowed, and it'll be we'll be looking forward to it, won't we, Naps?
I wonder if he's lurking around anywhere. Yeah, there was shock, horror. Sean, were you here when that happened?
No, I wasn't. I was just a viewer.
Were you even part of the Cool and the Gang at the time when he did that?
I don't think I was. I was on the outside on the external walls of the Seasiders podcast.
I don't think you'd made it.
Like you are with Club Gaz, just looking in long. Wishing you could be part of it.
On the periphery. Right, yeah, Thursday night preview show at 9 p.m. So thanks for everybody for joining us. In the comments, who we got on? Kelly, what are you saying? No arcade talk, please. I've just stopped crying. Oh, Kelly, see what I did there? I think she means Tricky Dicky, doesn't she? Evening Helen. See, since evening Gemma. Since Leanne came on, she's opened us up to a whole new female fan base. So welcome, ladies. Welcome, Ray. How are you doing, Ray? Welcome, Dave. Thanks for joining us. Steve's here as well. Right, Steve. Right, it'd be remiss to not talk about what we watched on Tuesday evening, Tim. You blamed me.
Your fault. Your fault. I was going out for a nice ride on my bike in what is, great weather we've got this week. And John says, do you fancy going to the game? Do you fancy going to the game? And he talked me round.
I rallied the troops. I rallied Nick as well. He was a bit...
And of course,
thanking me for it now, aren't you?
Let's go and have a nice beer in the fan zone area in the north. So we rock up there, and it's shut. Oh, we'll go. It's all right. We'll go under the north. We'll have one there. Queue about half a mile long there. Go around the west. Queue about half a mile long there. It was nothing open, and that was just pre-match, and then we had the game. Duck. John's gonna have to get his Wi-Fi sorted, isn't he?
I don't know what's going on. I'm back.
We were blaming the provider,
software,
weren't we? On
yeah. So the fan zone was shut, wasn't it? Couldn't get a drink in the ground. 2 big queues. So put a bit of a dampener. I wasn't asked. I wasn't drinking. Mitch, where were you sat for this game? Obviously, your regular seats was taken by the Barrow fans.
Yeah, I was in Block D at the back, which, to be fair, you nipped from Bolton to watch the game. I came all the way from Lancaster to watch the game. So what a treat it was. Yeah, I was in the back of Block D, and I got in with about 10 minutes to go. So, to be fair, you'd never get a drink in the north anyway with 10 minutes to go. But I thought, there's no one here. I'll go and get a bottle of water because it was quite hot, wasn't it? It was quite hot that night. And I'd been trying to meet my mate from Barrow who'd come from the game. And we hadn't managed to meet up. We'd sort, when you walk to different places and people aren't there. So I've been walking all over. And I'd just walked down from the Bloomfield. I had a pint in the Bloomfield and walked down. I was sweating me arse off, and then I couldn't even buy a bottle of water in the ground, which we won't. I mean, I'm not going to moan about it for that long because it's not that important, but it wasn't very good. I need to pay me £10 so I can go to the water lounge, don't I?
Actually, if you're in Block D, you're in prime spot for nipping into the Moretti.
Yeah, well, I did notice that. I looked longingly at the logo covered windows and just tried to imagine a world where I could visualize myself inside it.
There is a rumour flying around, Tim, that someone has got a season ticket for the Moretti Lounge. Can you confirm or deny?
Well, I did send you the picture of my season ticket, so unfortunately, I can do no more than confirm. We've me and the guys who I go to the game with, we've signed up. Listen, I hear all the arguments about paying to go in somewhere, but as we were saying off air before, for me and for the guys I'm with, we've got no kids with us, so we haven't got that issue to deal with. We've been there and all bought the T-shirt on that. And we all end up going to different pubs before the game, and this just means we can know we know where we can go. If we want to drink at half time, we might actually get one rather than spend the whole lunch, all the half time queuing up. And it's my birthday on Sunday, so on Saturday we're going to have a few beers beforehand, and then maybe watch the game afterwards up there before we tootle off into Polton or wherever it might be. So for us, it makes sense, and if you do it for the season, it's about £6, paying £15 for your season ticket. So for £21, I think we've sort of rationalised it that it's quite a good value overall. The overall package, the overall day is then what we want rather than where we're meeting and then be turning up in dribs and drabs and making a bit of a day of it, really.
There's no more Bloomfield club then?
Well, I was never a great fan of the Bloomfield club anyway. I quite liked that little bar on the corner opposite the Queen's that near my work, which is quite a nice pub. I do quite like going in there, to be fair. Shickers is it? Whatever it's called. That's all right, but I was no fan of the Bloomfield club, to be honest. Just personally, it's not for me. Armfield's really busy all the time, so it's just we're all 50-something, you see, so or 60-something in the case of some. So
the one reason I can see the appeal is being able to drink your beer from a glass. Is that the case, do you think?
I don't. Well, until we get in there, we don't know. But to me, it's just we're in the north. It's we've done the Heineken Lounge once last season. The lads did it for the last game because the Moretti wasn't open. I didn't because, to be honest, I want to be in the north, and so this is just suits me. And for £6 a game, whatever it works out at,
fair enough.
A lot on it. But I get the arguments coming back the other way. But the flip side is, if you don't want to go up there, there'll be a few less people queuing up on the main concourse. And I've got to say, and I think, the fan zone takes some when it's open, takes some pressure off as well.
Yeah, I might go. I might do the odd one or two.
And people can just go in on one-off basis as well. And I probably won't use it half the time, but it's there.
It's worth paying if you want to drink at half time, innit? Which is pretty much impossible at the moment.
Yeah, even those pre-order things, they become. We have to queue up for 15 minutes for a pre-order one now. So, but I do think it's about having a whole. We've got the bottle bars there, which are never open again now, which I find frustrating. Where you could, if you want, they've got such a small selling window, and this is going back 3 years ago. It's about maximising it. And like on Tuesday night, when Mitch wanted a water, me and Nick fancied a pint. I think you
I wanted the water as well. I wanted the water. Yeah, I wanted water.
We're just a small sample of all the people who are there, and how many people want this stuff. The markup's about 300%. It's about making sure you've got the staff there. And just because there's going to be a lower crowd doesn't mean you cut the refreshment provision down to bare bones so that nobody can get anything. The queues were longer on Tuesday night than they are on a Saturday. Bonkers. On night games, people turn up who are straight from work, haven't eaten, they want a pie or whatever. Probably, if anything, the demand is higher on a night game than it is on a Saturday game, I'd say.
Well, one of the things as well, I saw a lad I know from work outside the ground. He's actually a United fan. And I said, "Oh, all right, Dan, what are you doing here?" And he said, "Oh, I'm just sick of..." He actually does go and watch United. He said, "Oh, I'm just sick of United. I'm sick of it. I'm just spending so much money. I'm like spending all my time watching this crap team. I thought I'd come down to Blackpool, watch my local team. I've not been down for ages, just see what it's about." And then he says to me, that's what I said to him. I said, "Do you fancy a pint?" I'm just walking to the Bloomfield. He says, No, I'm meeting someone. Can I get a pint inside? I said, Yeah, you'll be all right. You can get a pint inside. And obviously he'll have gone in and then hit this huge queue and not been able to get a pint inside. So his first experience of stepping in Bloomfield for however long it is since he's been will be not being able to get a drink before the game, which isn't great, is it? And I actually saw a few people who were like outside the turnstiles were like, asking for direction with tickets and stuff. Because I think the fact that the £10 tickets had actually brought a few people down for the first time or for the first time in ages or whatever. And that's not a great first experience, really.
But it's just the bottle bar thing's just weird. Just staff that for.
I used to always use a bottle bar religiously.
Yeah.
I would never actually queue. I'd always use the bottle bars. So I'd always get
that tangerine ale's quite nice. Don't know if anyone's had it. The Seasider's ale. Sorry, I'd just go and get a can of that. It's just enough. I don't really want a pint at half time. You don't have enough time.
I mean, they may have some staffing issues, but I don't think it's just that. You just stick somebody in there. They must shift. I don't know how many. If they don't shift 50 bottles at half time, each one, and the markup on that is, what do we charge? They charge £3.
More than 50, Tim, I reckon. Be a few more than that.
Yeah, probably. Let's say it's 100 then. So the markup is £1.50 at least. So 100 times. So they make 150 quid minus the cost of staffing that bar on each one that they go around. And listen, I think we're conservative when we say it's 100, but it just doesn't make any sense. I find it even in that fan zone. And listen, there may be some licensing restrictions, which is the only explanation. But why not have 3 bars in there, or why not put some of the bottle bars in there, so that people, because you go in there, there's still only one. It was absolutely mobbed for Reading. There's still only one place to go and get served. Where if you had like loads of places dotted around where you could just go and get bottles, you'd sell 3 times as much.
And particularly in this day and age with contactless payment as well, that speeds it up from what it used to be, if that makes sense. You don't even have to mess around with cash or change or anything. It really literally should be blip. I mean, I used to work in catering many years ago, and when we used to do weddings, you'd have like banks and banks of bottles. So like when there's points in weddings, like when they finish the speeches and everyone goes to the bar, you'll get 300, 400 people going to the bar, and you're just trying to get as many bottles out to as many people as quickly as possible. And you can clear a huge bar pretty quickly if your staff are properly trained, turning it over, and you've got your payment points set up. It's not. I mean, I've noticed that this sounds proper shady, and I don't mean it to be, but the quality of the staff hasn't been amazing. There's obviously some staff who know what they're doing, and then there's agency staff. There was one lad when I was there, every single order, he had to be kind of talked through by the girl who was also trying to sell somebody else.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
It's not conducive to getting that turnover of sales.
Well, maybe you need to pay more and get the right staff in, because if you're paying national minimum wage, you're going to get lower levels of service, aren't you? If you just pay like 2 or 3 quid an hour more, you get proper staff, and then you actually get staff who are productive. And I don't know what the answer is, but I just know it's an absolute shit show.
It struck me that there'd been no training of certain staff. Again, I don't want to go on about catering because it's years since I've worked in it, but the time you put in to train the staff in how the system actually works, if you try and train them on the job, it'll just be a disaster.
Anyway, on to the...
Anyway, Barrow.
I love how we've got this massive list of important things to talk about.
it always boils down to beer.
On the fact that we couldn't get a pint.
All roads lead to not being able to get a pint in the ground. Barrow, none of our kids in the starting lineup, Mitch. Tell me about that. What you think about that?
Yeah, well, if anyone follows me on Twitter is quite vocal about this. Look, I I get why we have to loan Premier League players, and I get that Appleton's building a side, and I get that he's playing a new system, and I get that we've got new players. But I also think that what I've seen of our young players, particularly Rob Apter, I mean, I'm talking about Apter mainly, is he looks like a player that is, I don't know if he's ready to play. I don't think he's ready to play regular Championship football, but he looks like he's ready to play against Barrow. He looks like he's ready for a bit of a test. He's played in pre-season. He's done well. He's got decent reviews from people, and I just wanted to see a bit of a risk. I wanted to be excited about the lineup. I wanted to look at this lad and think, he played 18 months ago. And I was really, really hoping it was going to see Rob Apter. And then we got there and there's no sign of any of the kids in the squad. And I probably was a bit melodramatic about it on Twitter, saying, what's the point of the development squad, which is a bit melodramatic. But it just feels a bit like, well, we've got 4 loan players in that squad, and essentially the benefit of that lineup ultimately is going to go to Wolves, Arsenal, Manchester City, and if Williams comes on, Liverpool. And our own kids, well, when are they going to get a go? When are they going to get tested?
If they're not going to get a game against Barrow at home, when are they going to? They're not, are they?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm all for, don't throw kids in who aren't ready. But to me, Apter just looks ready. He looks, he didn't look any different from the actual squad players in pre-season. Against decent opposition, he looked good physically. I know he's little, but physically he looked ready. He interplay. He showed confidence with the rest of the team. He had his head up. He was vocal, and I think, well, what has that lad got to do? He played league football 18 months ago, and since then he's got exactly 0 chances. And I'll come on to it in the game, but I just felt like chuck a kid in, you get that energy, you get somebody who really, really wants to prove themselves, you get somebody who's going to bring a bit of raw tempo and rhythm and desire to the game, and that's not how the game started. But we'll get onto that.
I think with the thing that I'd say about that is that Rob Apter should have been there on merit ahead of CJ Hamilton, not even the basis of, throw a kid in, let's give him some experience. Rob Apter has a higher ceiling than CJ Hamilton, and CJ Hamilton's done nothing in months to prove that he's anywhere near the Blackpool first team or good enough to be in the Blackpool first team at any level. So Rob Apter should have been nailed on for that position for me. And then I think obviously the disappointment generally is, okay, fair enough, you play a relatively strong first side because you want to get the win if that's what you wanted to do, but to not have any on the bench was a real disappointment for me as well.
And I'll move on because we've got a lot to talk about, but it baffles me why, after they've been in the club for 2 years, we're at the stage where we're, quote, having a look at Bez Labala and CJ Hamilton. Like, why are we having a look at these players? We know exactly what they do, exactly who they are, what their records are, and we apparently have this system that that there's a back room beyond the immediate coaching staff. Could nobody have pointed out who these players are? And Apter's a player where we might learn something, but we're not going to learn anything about CJ and Bez. They're in the mid-20s. Well, they're older than in the mid-20s. That they are what they are. They've done their development.
Tim, anything to add before we move on to the game?
I think when I looked at that lineup, I was quite surprised how strong it looked on paper, at least, which suggested to me that Appleton was desperate. I think it's sort of mentioned in the chat a little bit. I think Appleton was, after Stoke, very keen on getting a result, and it was also the lack of any development player that I found quite surprising. It was, if you look at the subs bench, it's extremely strong. It's just I was surprised, and I was particularly surprised. I wasn't surprised with Lavery starting. I was quite surprised that Hamilton did, and I was quite surprised that Dom Thompson did. I thought that, I've got to say, I agree with Mitch. I thought Apter would have started this game and possibly more at right back. Because if you're going to go out, then at least give these lads a run. But actually, I looked at that team and I thought Appleton. In some respects, I was pleased because I'm sick of us like just chucking the cups away completely and not having a good fist of it. And I actually did think he wants to win the game. So I can see both sides of the argument, but I don't understand why none of these young lads are actually on the subs bench. And then we name Yates and Bowler and don't even bring them on the pitch. So what's the point in naming them in the first place? Because we actually needed them in the last 15 minutes, and I think if we'd put them on with 15 minutes to go, I think we'd have probably won the game without going through the nonsense that came afterwards. So, it was. I could see what Appleton wanted. That's what I took out of seeing that squad, and I actually thought we were going to see a good performance.
Oh, how wrong you were!
Just like I was wrong about getting a beer in the ground, and just like I was wrong about not going out on my bike.
Wrong about going to the fan zone.
It's
You were marching us around, Tim, weren't you?
Oh, come and look at this. Come and look at this. It's great.
I was like, God, where's he taking us here? Me and Eddie got to watch the warm up though, so that was pretty good.
So did me and Nick.
Smashing the ball. Oh yeah, you did as well. Yeah. It's really good. That I just recommend it if anyone's not drinking pre-match. Just go and watch them on the warm ups and watch them smashing balls into the net. You can really see that the professional footballers when you're doing that. Right. First off, Sean, talk to me. Talk to me from the expertise emanating out of the press box. A nice, well-balanced view.
Oh, yeah. It was woeful. It was really, really poor, really passive. I mean, Michael Appleton will have you think otherwise from his comments afterwards, which is another story, but it was passive. There was no response from Stoke in the first half. It was going through the motions. We were taking the safe option with passes. We were slack on the ball. We had no quality going into the final third. We never looked like we were going to break down the Barrow defence, who were pretty content with just sitting back. Why wouldn't you be against a team like that? It's run-of-the-mill stuff. It's what we think Swansea were last season, essentially, in the first half, is what we were doing, taking no risky options, playing no risky passes, just simply playing the ball and hoping that eventually they'll make a mistake, or there was no one that picked up the ball and you thought this person's going to do something. I mean, Theo Corbin, who's falling over the ball, CJ Hamilton can't control a ball, fell over the ball, fell over his own feet. It's just ridiculous to watch. There was a look. I don't like going at CJ Hamilton anymore because we've said our piece on him and he just shouldn't be playing for us. And it's why managers keep selecting him is beyond me at this point. He's void of confidence. But I mean, I just burst out laughing at one point because I thought, why are we still watching this? Why are we still watching this now? It's so obvious that it's not good enough. It was really poor, and it worried me that first half, mainly because obviously Appleton said that we were fine from box to box, so it was okay essentially, and that's what he wants to see. And apparently that was a bit of a trend of the final season at Lincoln, which is a concern because I don't want a manager that's possession for possession's sake. It's possession with a purpose, or there's no point. I don't want Russell Martin in charge of the football club. Else we're going nowhere. I don't think he's like that, which is why to be honest, his comment surprised me, if I'm being honest. I thought he'd have been pissed off with it because we needed more aggression in the final third. But yeah, it wasn't great. And I think obviously the worry is that a couple of players, particularly Jordan Thornley, stepped up to the plate. But apart from that, I wouldn't have picked out anyone that I went, this person's nailed on to start on Saturday. And that's a real concern because at this point, that's why as well, I think he also come out about the fact that all these other teams had lost. Championship teams had lost lower division. I think there was more importance on this game for us than the vast majority of those. It's a new manager in charge. It's the last chance for a lot of players to impress him, to be able to part of the squad this season, and none of them did it. And it is a concern because we are a long, long, long way off this working.
Tim, it was quite a strong lineup as we were discussing, as we were crossing over St Anne's Road from Bloomfield Road, saying, "Oh, he obviously as you've said before, wants to go far in this tournament. And as Sean's just said there, it was a woeful first half display, absolutely terrible. And I'm worried as well now, just as Sean's said there.
Yeah, well, obviously it falls on from Stoke as well, doesn't it? What I would say is that whatever Appleton said post-match, and whether anybody got the hairdryer treatment in the change rooms, well, no doubt have to stay in the changing room. But his body language on the sideline as that half developed in the first half was actually quite amusing to watch, because he looked like he was about to chew a wasp. He really did. He did not look impressed. He did not look happy. And I don't know what anybody else did. I saw anybody on Twitter, no doubt, who follows things going on will have seen it. But some guy who's clearly Patino's fan club organizer put together a montage of all his touches, effectively, or positive touches in the game. And when you watch it, because it is obviously edited, and they are his positive touches, not his negative touches, but the number of times you see CJ Hamilton just miscontrol
that the crossfield ball from Patino. It was a brilliant crossfield pass, wasn't it?
And all the comments from the Arsenal fans, because obviously they're like loving Patino, and to be fair, and we'll go to, I don't think he was anywhere near man of the match, but obviously he's done he's had a few decent touches, albeit I don't think he's pushed the way he could, but they all say, geez, like, who's he playing with? They can't trap a bag of cement. And that the comments are just full of that. And I was reading it thinking, actually watching that, I would post that. I would say that. Of course you would.
I'd say bring him back.
One particularly brilliant one where a guy just goes, that number 22, he's all on his pace and nothing else. He's got no touch. And then there's a load of Blackpool fans going, wow, you've watched CJ Hamilton for 10 seconds and you've absolutely nailed it. It's brilliant.
Mitch, have you got anything to add that's not already been said about the first half before we move on to the second?
I think that not really. I mean, I just think that every time there was a little pattern of play developed, what would happen? It just looked really disjointed. It looked very static, and it looked quite disjointed. And every time we put a little pattern of play together, one of the players would go on some kind of like pointless little glory run and then get tackled. And that was kind of frustrating me, was how uncohesive it was. And I thought Thornley played well. I mean, we've covered Thornley not being liked by football managers for no apparent reason before. And the only other player I really felt anything for was because I wasn't at Stoke, because on holiday. I liked Thompson, which was the first time I'd seen him, but even he managed to not be able to take a throw in and throw it backwards into the stand, which wasn't a great touch. But I just liked he looked to have a bit of verve to him and a bit of energy. And there was one point where, what was that for?
Verve.
Okay. He looked to have a bit of something about him. And there was one point where I really liked him, where Connolly was getting absolutely roasted on the right, and Thompson came all the way over from the other fullback and just absolutely smack. It was a great tackle. So my first impressions of him was I quite like him. I don't think he's the world's greatest footballer, but he looks like he's got a bit of a heart about him. But Thompson and Thornley, and when you're playing against Barrow and your centre back and your left back, the only players who stand out in any positive way, that's not a great sign. And I also just found it surreal at one point. It was really weird because I've been away, so I haven't been there for all the Patino stuff. And it was so weird because the whole ground's chatting for Patino. And there was one point where he actually passed the ball into an advertising audience and everyone stood up and clapped. And I was thinking, but that was shit.
Yeah.
What are you clapping for? I mean, to be fair, but he was all right, but it was just weird.
I said to Tim, I actually forgot he was playing at one point.
Yeah.
That was quite anonymous, personally.
Yeah.
Sean, second half was, I think the highlight for me was the reintroduction of Jimmy Husband, a class act when he came on at left back.
Yeah, I think him and Gabriel, the energy they showed to say that they've just come back and they've had no pre-season was, in fact, I think Husband probably showed more of that than Gabriel did. He really put himself about and he got himself forward and he was aggressive, and that was good to see, because obviously, as much as we've been crying out for a right back, we have zero cover at left back until Husband came back as well, which is just as important, especially with how much Thompson runs himself into the ground every week. But I don't know what to make of this second half personally, because I know that obviously we did create chances, we did open up chances, but it was just that thing that, I mean, how long have we been going on about the lack of quality in the final third now? It's like Critchley was talking about it in January. Like, it's just a consistent theme that we keep talking about, and it's the same and same again every time. And I mean, realistically, we should have probably scored in that 90 minutes, but the tempo rose when the likes of Carey. I was really impressed with Carey. I thought Carey's drive was very good, and I was surprised he didn't start. I thought it was a really good opportunity to build some confidence into him, because essentially what he'd played is what I would have probably outlined as the midfield three that we're playing at Swansea. Now I'm not so sure on that, and I think potentially Carey might come in for Fiorini potentially, but his drive, and Labala again, he does have that drive about him, and you know he gets himself about, and I think sometimes he gives away a lot of silly fouls and stuff, but you know, that energy kind of drove us on a bit more, and obviously Barrow were backing off more and more and fancied their chances. I think the fact it goes straight to penalties probably gives these lower league side more of a tendency to just sit back and just do it for the 90 minutes, because they know that they've got that. They don't have an extra 30 minutes of extra time afterwards, and I think that probably has an eye on their decision making and how they approach a game. But it just wasn't great. It all just wasn't great, and it's the same consistent themes, because ultimately we can say we played well and we created chances in that second half, but we haven't scored against Barrow, and we're going into the championship season now, and it's just not good enough.
Tim, when penalties came around, none of us were confident, were we?
I think we did beat West Brom once on penalties, didn't we, in the FA Cup? But we haven't got what I'd consider a pedigree when it comes to penalty shootouts. And I think we both said that at the time we're going to lose this, and we had various chances not to lose it, but the net result was, I think, to be fair, Conley came up with the first one. I actually thought the keeper, I've not watched them back, but my initial impression was the keeper done quite well with that one.
It was a good
save. It was a good save.
Yeah. And then by hook or by crook later on, I don't know, we're presumably not going to analyse all of them. By hook or by crook, when we missed the last one, we get a second bite at the cherry and redeem ourselves. And then Fiorini sets up and shows his Premier League quality by replicating, albeit vertically, the Bamba penalty from 1991.
No, it was nothing like the Bamba penalty.
It was as far away from the goal.
It's more like Chris Waddle.
Yeah. No, I said it was vertical version of the Bamba penalty. I did say that. So as in, it was absolutely nowhere near. It was actually maybe Russell Coughlin when he hit it.
Yes, that's a better one. Yeah.
The supermarket behind Bolton's away end, for those of a certain vintage. It was. It was like a disaster, wasn't it? And I've got to say, and listen, keepers normally get away scot-free on these things.
Maxwell doing his hair, Tim.
Maxwell was doing it. Listen, he had his windows like me.
He had a fielding haircut.
Yeah, so he's the Barrow player. I can't remember which one it was called take a penalty, and as he's running up, he's taking the he's messing with his hair, and if you notice the Barrow keeper, and obviously he got pulled for coming off the line a few times. He's making himself big, trying to put us off, walking out and messing around. Maxwell's standing behind his line, just waiting for the penalty to come, almost like he was going through the motions. The Barrow lad was thought he was Bruce Grobbelaar from '84, in Rome.
Again, for those of a certain vintage.
It's another one. So, but they wanted to win it. They wanted to win the game, and we got to penalties. And I think we looked like we were just, it doesn't really matter. Now, whether there's some attitudes in there that don't want to be here, don't want to, make ensure we win all the games. I don't know, but we didn't look. Went to those penalties. There was only one team going to win it. For me,
I said to go on, Mitch. Go on.
I was going to say, I think what Tim said there about attitude and what Sean said and what I'd said earlier about Thompson, and it's like, I get that we're transitioning style. I get that we're changing formation, we're transitioning style, and I get that that's part of it. But also words like energy and attitude keep coming up, and we're picking out that players sort of did quite well because they looked like they were, they looked like they had a go. This is not a very high bar, is it, for this game? And that's what's concerning. And I mean, it just looked like they weren't really enjoying it. And the thing that I found quite sad was, I mean, I know the season trailed off under Critchley. I know the last few games under Critchley weren't great. But there was always, for the last couple of years, we got really used to seeing this like unit of players that were sort of really quite tight knit, like it's only sort of April when I was watching a game where at kickoff, they all went round and they literally were hugging each other and, clapping and cut. And it was this really, really tight knit unit. And there was absolutely none of that. They didn't seem to be really urging each other on. They didn't seem to be really talking to each other. It was noticeable when Jimmy came on. He was really geeing him up and he looked really pissed off at the end. And some of the other players just kind of like, oh, that happened. And off they went. And I'm not saying that they didn't try, and I'm not necessarily saying that they want to leave the club, but it just didn't look like they were enjoying it. That being part of that group was meant.
Husband looked really, really pissed off with Fiorini's penalty. I've got to say, as he was walking off, he looked like he was commenting about and saying, "How the hell can you not hit a goal?" I mean, he didn't just miss it; he ballooned it, but.
We have overlooked the highlight though of the penalty shootout, which was Jimmy Husband's stutter penalty.
Yes,
which was the least Jimmy Husband thing you could possibly imagine.
Kieran Glover's just in the comments. I think we lack leaders in the squad.
I just think we lack quality in the squad,
and that, yeah,
that's the be all and end all. You do for me. I always say about this, but I'm less about these sort of intangible things and more like ultimately we've got a squad of players that are suited to playing off the ball, counter-attacking style in a 4-4-2, and we're trying to play possession-based attacking 4-3-3. And literally, I count on one hand how many players are probably actually fit for that system. So it's a long road ahead, but it's quality that will make the difference.
We all know what it's like at some point in life, whether it's in your work or whatever. But if you're asked to do something that you know or you feel is beyond you, that can be really demoralizing. And I wonder how much that is part of why the players don't look like they're enjoying it. Is that deep down, a lot of those players will know their own level and they'll know that they're not going to be able to play Man City football. They're not stupid, and some of the older players have they've had success playing a certain way. They're probably very grateful for the success they've had. Some of them have been propelled to a higher level than maybe they thought they would do or realistically believed they could get to. And then, then being asked to stop playing that way and start playing a new way that that you're gonna, come on, again, as Sean said, let's not dig into CJ for the sake of it, but CJ in a quick moving, short, first-time passing team, that's just never going to happen. And he must know that himself,
I think as well, like you're saying there, I think the important point to make is that when there is a real transition of style and a structure at a football club, it's because it's been going wrong and it's been going right for us. And I think that's also a lot more difficult for a new manager to come in and go, yes, those things have been going right, but we're going to completely revamp this now. I think there was like a general sort of understanding within the club this summer that they would have to transition a style to become more possession heavy to be able to sort of hold on to these leads late into games by all accounts. But that's if Critchley was going to be the manager as well. But it does seem like it's a long road ahead, but even more so when you've got players in there that are going, well, we've done it this way and it's not done us any harm. So you've got to really get them to buy into it, probably more so than a team that have been struggling.
Yeah, I mean, again, you can imagine some of the figures in the dressing room literally asking the question, why? And it being quite a powerful question. Why are we doing it this way? Because we did it that way, and this is where we've, why are you coming in from League One telling us what to do? We have to do it all differently because this is how we do it. And you can imagine that being quite a powerful question within that dressing room. And I mean, this is all supposition, isn't it? And we've no idea. They might all be singing "We Love Michael Appleton," and
Right. I think you're on a hat trick now, Tim.
I know. I've
taking
been
you
usurped.
well, that's one. I'm on fire now. I've got no chance.
2-1. Instant response. Right, let's move on to Swansea. Tom's just said in the chat we've got no quality, and he's also said Swansea are going to eat us alive.
I like the new Tom. He's really angry, isn't he? I've always got him as like real mild mannered, gently spoken, a bit like Connor, a little bit, and he's found his teeth.
He's turned into Bisons, hasn't he?
Yeah.
The man with no name. Swansea away then, gentlemen.
At home.
Sean, give us your thoughts on how you think this is going to go. I'm not looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to seeing Swansea passing the ball around in their own third for 80 minutes.
Well, that's what we're going to do. Well,
we are, yeah. And B, I think they're going to be better at it than us, and I think they're going to win the game reasonably comfortably.
Yeah, it's going to be a real difference in approach, I think, for us. I think, to be honest, to an extent, it obviously, in terms of our off-the-ball work, we're not really a pressing side under Appleton, and we didn't press against Swansea when we were under Neil Critchley. So, in that sense, it probably suits us a bit more off the ball. But on the ball, it's about discipline, it's about concentration, because Swansea are just going to consistently keep playing about with the ball. They have, I think, Russell Martin's main point after the sort of poor start they've had is more aggression and more intent in the final third, which, I mean, we could basically mirror ourselves after the Stoke and the Barrow games. So it just seems like it's all going to fade into a box-to-box battle, and then no one having a shot at goal if you're looking at it beforehand. But also because it's about that discipline and concentration, and if you allow that space to open up, they'll just thread a ball through, especially Swans with the quality they've got in midfield. The defence don't look particularly stable for us. They don't look particularly stable for Swansea. It could be either or, couldn't it? But I'm not looking forward to it particularly because they've got some really quality ball players in there that could, the minute there's a bit of a space, they could thread it through, and you've got the quality up top to be able to do something about it. Whereas perhaps if we get that individual moment, we'll probably fluff our lines at this point.
Tim, your thoughts on the Swansea game? One thing quite a few people have been saying is that the feel-good factor around the club and the ground has gone. Is this going to be a game where we get it back?
I don't think I feel going into this game that I've got confidence that we're going to turn up and swashbuckle our way to a victory. I think if we do win the game, it'll be tight, it will be dirty, it will be it won't be pretty to watch, I don't think. I do find myself slightly bemused by some of the selections that Appleton's making, and sometimes you put that down to the fact it's a new manager, but hopefully the right selection has been made on Saturday, which will give us the best chance of doing it. If not, I could find myself spending longer in the Moretti bar than I perhaps originally intended. At least I've got that option. So
if
looking on the positive side.
If anyone's wondering what they're seeing on the screen now, this is Mexico versus Portugal that was famously highlighted on The Simpsons. Just 2-3 players just passing the ball in their own half, back and forth constantly. And I think this is what the game's going to be like.
Do you remember that game? Do you remember that game when Swansea had loads of possession against us and it was last home game, wasn't it? And they did fuck all with it, and we ended up winning. I think we had something. Sean will have the actual stat, no doubt. But I think in the first half, we had 67% possession. But it means nothing unless you do something with it, does it?
Oh, yeah. Look at the team in green there. Look at
absolutely nothing.
Russell Martin had a little cry after the Blackburn game recently. Obviously, he had it then, but against the Blackburn recently, Blackburn did a number on them, just like we did, exactly the same setup as last time. But Blackburn have got the quality where they counter attack, they can play it to a Brereton Diaz or a player like that, and they've just completely sucker punched them 3 times. And I just worry that if we do, even if we are completely disciplined and stick to to what we know defensively, and we are quite stable in the game, do we have that quality to break away and break them down and then score that goal at that moment? I'm not too sure.
No,
I think
no.
I feel like we're probably a bit more of a threat from set pieces at the moment than perhaps we have been recently. But I don't know. I really am struggling to motivate myself to be positive about it at the moment, just generally. But this is the system. This is the way we're going to go. We'll soon get a quick test of if the players have the ability for 90 minutes against a side that just aren't going to allow you to have the ball, whether they've got that concentration out of possession, perhaps. Then we know that we've been quite slack in it.
Mitch, finally, Swansea, your hopes and dreams for this game versus the reality of what's going to happen.
I've seen us play against Russell Martin teams 4 times now, and each time they've been abysmal games. So, I'm not looking forward to it. I always go back to that game we beat them at home. Well, it wasn't them, it was MK Dons when he was there, and it was one of Critch's first wins, if not, no, it was his second win, I think it was, and it was a horrendous game. And it's the one time in a long, long time where I actually felt pissed off when we'd won, because I felt like the game was some kind of assault on the idea of what football should be, because it was just square passing, back and forth, square passing, back and forth, go back. There was no adventure. There was no imagination from either side. And I think in that game, Sully nipped in and got a goal with sort of one of 2 shots, and it was horrific. It was one of my least favourite games of football ever. So I think you can tell I'm not that excited about watching it, and I just echo what everybody else has said. I don't see how we score unless one of the players that we don't really know about, so one of the newer lads, does something that we haven't yet seen is in their locker, if that makes sense.
It won't be Corbin based on his performance on Tuesday night.
Oh, he'll come good. I'm convinced he'll come good.
I'm gonna say slightly. I thought he did. Well, he didn't do okay. I didn't think he was,
awful,
massively effective. But I thought he looked like, I thought he grew into it a little bit, and I thought he did sort of play with a bit of intent in the way that Fiorini and maybe to a lesser extent Patino looked quite raw, and I'm not going to get on Patino's back. He looked quite raw, but he looked like he was really trying to do things that perhaps other players weren't reading or weren't able to manage. Fiorini looked as if he was trying to glide around the game without really being able to glide around the game. I thought Corbino actually did try and drive into the box, and he did have a couple of efforts. I don't know. I've not seen him before, so I'm maybe behind in terms of judgment.
He couldn't beat a drum, could he? Never mind a player.
Well, when I looked at his stats, and this is really reductive analysis.
Oh, there it is. There's the hat trick.
I did that one on purpose, I've got to admit. When I looked at his stats, I was struck by how numerically similar to CJ Hamilton he is in terms of his basic numbers. Like, he sort of runs quite quickly away from people, doesn't necessarily beat people, doesn't actually assist many or score many in the same way that CJ does. He's one of those players that looks like a theoretical weapon, And I think managers look at CJ and go, yeah, he's really quick. He'll be theoretically good. And I am slightly worried that Corbino is that same player, but I don't know. I don't want to judge him. And I thought he did. I think he did all right. So in conclusion, I'm not looking forward to the game. No Gary, no goals.
Who was it? Was it Neil said? Do we need to go 4-4-2 to win the game? Yes, we do, Neil. But I don't think it's gonna.
No,
I don't think it's
no.
gonna happen. Sean,
There's
let's bring you in on this.
The minute we've changed formation, we might as well sack off the whole thing and get a new manager. That's my take on it. You're either all bought into it or you're not. You've got to go 100% on it now. We're in for it, and if it all goes to shit, it goes to shit. But I just don't think compromising on the whole ethos of what the manager that we've brought in is about makes any sense, because you might as well have just hired a different manager, which is another point entirely. I'm starting to think, who knows, but we'll see.
Is that your version of we're stuck with him, Sean?
That is my version of we're stuck with him, but I do have faith that, if we get the right players in and we give it time, then it probably will come good. But whether it comes good enough to come soon enough this season, I'm getting less and less convinced.
Right, round the room then. We haven't got time to pick the team because we're nearly on an hour. We said we'd do this in 50 minutes. Tim, give us a prediction.
Can we do one team thing, John? I don't want to jump in, but who the hell's playing up front? I'm really intrigued to who's playing up front. You can forget the rest of the team, but
Medine, obviously, we'll find out the team news tomorrow, but Medine should be back tomorrow. For Saturday, by all accounts. So,
all right, sorted. We're going to win then.
So he had a little bit of a struggle with this kick on the shin that he got. But yeah, we'll see. I think he might play Yates in the 9 But then I thought last time when he kept going on about how good Dougal's been that he was going to play Dougal and then he didn't. So perhaps he might not. But I think he'll go Corbinu, Yates, and Bowler. But we'll see.
Yeah, sorry, John. I was just proper intrigued because I thought Gaz was out, and then I was like, well, who the hell is he going to play up front? Because he doesn't appear to like any of the other strikers. But if Gaz is playing, then
Tim.
I think Yates should play there. I think I was so surprised he didn't come on against Swansea. To be honest, I think if him and Bowler had come on, then Appleton would have had the win he was looking for. And I just don't get it. Why name them if you're not going to put them on? But I think they're both going to start. And I do like the way that Bowler and Yates interact. So if Medine isn't fit, eligible to play, whatever, then I see that being the forward line, and left hand side is probably up for grabs a little bit. I think.
Should we do the team quickly then? Should we do it?
Yeah, go on. Go on quickly.
Let's get it up. Oh, don't start lagging, computer. Right. Let's get this bit bigger. So, Chris Maxwell, obviously in net, based on his heroics against Barrow.
Needs a hairband. Borrow bowlers next time.
Borrow bowlers, Alice Band.
Obviously, he said that Gabriel and Husband, the medical team, said for them to have 30 minutes against Barrow, and then you'd think now that they'd probably be able to step up to an hour, judging by how well they did. So potentially you could start both of them.
Grimmy's going in though, isn't he?
Do you not think that? I thought Gabriel looked a bit
raw
pace.
He does tend to, though. I think when he comes back a little bit, because he's such a
overexcited schoolboy.
Yeah, he is. He is quite keen to put himself about. And sometimes
you
get a bit positionally naive.
I was quite pleased to see that, though, that like he'd been out injured and he's obviously had a couple of injuries now, and his first thing was just straight into a proper
50-50 tackle.
Yeah, which is nice, isn't it?
He's going in then, isn't he? I'm taking him.
Oh, I really don't want to see Connolly there. It's not right for him. It's not doing him any good. He got done by a Barrow winger, which is not a good sign.
I'd rather see Connolly as the number 6, Sean.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm actually I might be in the Kenny train, I might have joined the club that perhaps I think he might have earned that place. The way
I think Leanne talked me round with Dougal.
I taught Leanne round.
No, you taught Leanne round, but she's taught me round, and I think Connolly's better in that position, and I think he's got a bit more.
Dougal's had a couple of good games, really good games, I thought.
Basically, you know that if you've exiled yourself from Club Gaz, then you just have to go to Club Kenny instead. That's the way it is, isn't it?
Anyway, we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves there. Right, there's the centre half pairing will be interesting.
Marv's got to be one. We don't need to debate that.
Do we?
I don't know. He's been very shaky.
Yeah, but he's quality.
Yeah, no, I think Marv should play. I think my point is the fact that if you're playing it based off form, if we're going to then make a thing of, well, Thornley should play, I think Marvin should drop out over Williams, because I think Williams has been the best centre half that we've had this season on form. But obviously, we know that there's more to it than that longer term.
Has Marvin actually? Oh no, yes. You literally just watched him play with Thornley because I have Marvin played with Thornley. Yes, he did.
I think Thornley deserves to stay in based on his performance, and I just think
but he won't. That's the point, I suppose.
Yeah, so if it's
we'll put him in then. Let's put him in.
Yeah, it's our team, and it's not guessing.
Yeah, it's our team. Yeah, it's our team.
I've got a shout. I'll give you a shout for Thornley.
I'm playing Marv. I'm sorry, I am.
Yeah.
I'm playing Marv for the next 5 games, even if he's shite, because he's
got to learn it.
If you play him into form, and if he learns the system, then look at when he first turned up, and he was all over the place, and it took him 5, 6, 7 games, and then he was superb. Maybe
it took him getting a proper centre back partner in Keogh. Yeah.
Let's quickly talk about Keogh. Obviously, Tricky Dicky is no more. That shirt will no longer be on there.
He has got 2 years left in him, but I think he's. I don't know if he's from that area, but I know he started at Ipswich, and doesn't his best mate now coach there? So
his family's in Essex, and he wanted to move back. Is what I think is the reason.
If your family's in Essex, you don't want to be up in Blackpool long term, do you?
No.
Well, plus we're getting a fee for him as well, which I was surprised with, which is pretty good, really, isn't it? It's a win-win.
I mean, I think the loss to the team is massive.
Well, yeah, let's quickly discuss Richard Keogh going, because it's not just his attributes as a player; it's his attributes as a captain and a leader and an organizer, which can be hard to replicate.
And social media joker as well.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
But it's all part of the team spirit, isn't it? It's all part of what makes a club tick and what creates that atmosphere.
It's also, we can talk about sort of things like fan engagement. I mean, frankly, I don't really care what the board say to me, or whether there's dancing girls when you go in the ground or whatever. I don't give a toss about that. My fan engagement is with players who try really hard and look like they give a toss. And Keogh was just brilliant for that. He was ultimately worshipped because the lad absolutely put his body on the line every game, and he was so intense the way he played. He was so intense. He lived every minute of every football match. Absolutely. He was eccentric in the way he was so focused and so intense. And when we scored, the lad looked like he looked like his head was going to fall off. He would celebrate that much. And I think you can talk about so many different aspects of a football club, and like it's some kind of long read in the broadsheets about modern football. But ultimately, as a football fan, I'm happy if I go and see players absolutely graft their arse off, and Keogh did that week in, week out. And I think that's what I'll miss about him, is somebody who just looked like he appreciated being on a football pitch, appreciated the fans. And ultimately it can't be easy for a 36-year-old bloke with kids living in a hotel far away from them, so he's gone, and I wish him all the best.
I think for me, he definitely taught me a lesson. I think obviously we can go back to that podcast episode from Coventry or Cardiff when it was. He taught me a lesson to never write off a footballer after a couple of games, definitely, because I mean the technical ability of Richard Keogh was brilliant. Like his ball playing ability. We looked at the way that Thornley was doing it the other night against Barrow, and the way he can sort of feed a ball through the lines. Keogh did that so consistently, and I think it was the Fulham game where we were talking about the fact that perfect performance where Marv would drop off and recover, and Keogh would push forward, and he bullied Mitrovic in that game, and he was just brilliant for us. And as you say, obviously all of the other stuff that comes around him makes him that sort of fan figure, but what a bloody player he was as well. And I mean, he's one of I don't think I'll forget Richard Keogh very quickly in a Blackpool shirt, and that kind of says it all. And I mean, for a guy to come in at that age and that experience and completely like win a whole fan base around in a season says a lot about how good of a player he was.
It's like we've been used to when players come in almost for the last paycheck. We've been used to a certain demographic of what it looks like. It's been the antithesis that he's basically, he has been probably the heart and soul of the team, where you've been used to players just coming in, picking up a check, and maybe like going through the motions. And he's just not. That's not him, is it? And I think he's the fact that he's had so many well wishers as he's left is a great testament to the impact he's had in what is a relatively short period of time at the club. And I think everybody wishes him the best. They can see why he's done it. And, you know, he's got another good 2 years in him. And I think he'd have been definitely a starter for us this season if he was fit. And there's a big hole to plug from my perspective, I think, with him having gone.
Okay, so yeah, good luck, Richard, for Ipswich. You leave with everyone's best wishes, unlike Neil Critchley. Right, left back. Now, this is a tricky one. Jimmy's back. I'd say he offers. It's hard to fully evaluate these new players, isn't it? We've only seen Thompson a couple of games. He's decent, you know, looks like a good defender, but I think Jimmy offers more in that position, and I think he's more of a leader, and that's exactly what we need with Keogh gone. So my vote would go for Jimmy.
Jimmy really surprisingly looked like he suited that advanced left role. Right? He played in front of CJ for parts of the game, which was really weird. It was like for those of a certain vintage, it was almost like what Hills and Yashin used to do when they played together. When you used to look, McMahon used to put out that side, and you'd be like, well, which one's the left back? And which one's the winger? And they just swap. I thought Jimmy just looked like he'd never been injured. He didn't miss a beat. But as I said before, I also like Thompson, so I'm really unsure about it, this one.
I thought Thompson was a little bit too erratic against Barrow. I didn't think he had the greatest game in the world, but I think he's probably the sort of player that you probably want to keep in, I think. Because, I mean, obviously he's not performed badly. At Stoke, he wasn't great. Do you know, his husband. I was gonna pick Thompson, but I'm talking myself into husband. He was very, very good. He did surprise me as well with how energetic he was down that left hand side. And I think
maybe we could play Thompson in CJ's role.
Wouldn't do any worse.
Yeah, we could play them both, couldn't we? As
let him interchange.
Yeah.
This is a tough one, isn't it? Thompson is our player, isn't he? He's signed. He's our player.
I really like him as well.
It's good that it's tough. That's a good thing that it's tough, because it means obviously we've got good competition for husband going forward, which is what we want. Right.
Like
so who are we voting for then? We need to.
Well, we saw last year with Sterling and Gabriel, didn't we? Which one? So I think there's been 3 for Jimmy, and I don't know. So it's Jimmy, isn't it?
I would Thompson.
Jimmy's famous.
Oh,
fan,
so Thompson 2-1. I'll say Jimmy just to move us on.
Yeah. What was yours, Sean? What was your vote?
Husband. Yeah.
Okay. Right. This does need to be laid out. So you've got your CDM in there, doesn't it? Or your number 6.
It does, John.
So defensive midfielder in this 3. Tim.
One choice.
Dougal.
Sean.
I think Dougal as well.
Mitch.
Callum.
I'm Callum as well. I'm Connolly. How are we going to resolve this?
Who started there last?
My
first
thinking
person
is
in the comments to say Connolly or Dougal, and he's in. Go. Connolly or Dougal. Connolly or Dougal.
Can we not play them both?
Could do.
I did say that weird experiment of playing Connolly in one of the advanced central positions, to be fair.
Dougal. Stephen Ward has spoken. Oh, no. What does MB? What does that? No, Neil Fraser. Kenny. Who said it first?
Tom
said Connolly and Dougal.
Well, Connolly's name comes first, therefore it's Connolly. Because we could still pick Dougal in.
Please, Leanne, let's put Connolly in.
We could still pick Dougal in one of the other positions. Ah.
That's what I meant. Put both of
Do you know
them
what's
there.
mental? That we've got Connolly is in the defenders list. Look, technically a defender. Oh, he's tough.
Get your coin out.
They've rebadged him, you fool.
All right. Heads Connolly, tails Dougal.
What is it?
Heads.
Heads. Connolly then.
Yes. See you later, Dougs. Or shall I put him on the? Shall I put him in the actual?
Yeah,
No,
Put him in the middle.
Put him in the
Put him
middle.
in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the functionality works there. That.
You see me and Sean both getting edgy. You go, put him in the middle, put him in the middle.
I know.
Oh no, the error checking I've built in. Right, I'll have to do it in a minute. Attacking midfielder number 8. Is that right?
Gary.
Cam.
Yeah, I think Carey as well. I thought he's played his way into a place over Fiorini for me after his
Carey
performance.
as well.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. Right-sided midfielder. Is that right? How's this 4-3-3 even work? So what?
Connolly needs to go in the 7.
I don't think I can do that. No.
Well, you bloody need to, John. We need to cancel this whole
We'll
show.
get OCD. He's going to kick in.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll do it after the stream. I'll work it out and I'll repost
It's
that.
going to end up like the Cameron Brannigan show where it's all going to unravel from here because it's
Oh,
got
Jesus.
Cameron Connolly in the 7 shirt.
Yeah, but the shirt number disappears. So who's the third midfielder then?
Patino.
Yeah.
What role, Sean? What role?
So
in this
he'd be
book?
one of the advanced players. I mean, my mental shout is obviously to have this 18-year-old child in the 6, but we're not at that stage yet, so we'll play him in one of the advanced roles. So it'd be Carey and Patino advanced, and then Connolly sitting.
Do we all agree with that?
Yeah, and I was actually quite surprised at Patino's willingness to play very deep, and that was one of the things I liked about him. So I'm
Well, I'm
to
afraid
put
to
him
tell
in
you
there.
that Appleton said he was getting annoyed. They kept dropping deep, so and then he told him to get further forward second half. So
Well, yeah,
don't
but
know
I
if he'll
mean,
be doing
against
much.
Barrow, I get that because, but
Yeah.
if we are needing
Yeah,
to have,
100%.
Mark, hey, Carey
Well,
will be lucky he's not done much. What?
Well, yeah, he hasn't done much generally, but I just thought, well, I think he probably. I don't know. I think he's quite a physical player. I think
He's
that's
got.
quite an
He makes things
underestimated thing
happen.
about
He
him.
does.
looks to make things happen, doesn't he?
It was great against Barrow. There was a couple of absolutely genius balls where he found one of them where he found Lavery and one of them where he found some possibly CJ, and I think it was the one CJ air kick. They were as good as anything anybody played all night, and he just came on and he put himself about. He's feisty.
Nearly
And
got a pen as well.
Yeah, he had what I think Fiorini didn't have, which was that understanding that, right, we're playing Barrow, come on, get stuck in. He was all elbows, and he seems to have come back like a right feisty little get. And I like that about him. I've always liked him, but he seems to have had that edge to his game that I'm playing him.
Yeah, I agree. Fiorini's not done enough to start, so in the bin he goes.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I think it's a pretty close call for me. And I think that, again, it's another example of, we've got a position there where we're debating 2 players that have probably got quite decent quality on the ball. So we'll see. I guess, to be fair, for the reason for Fiorini to play is obviously we're playing Swansea, and he's probably going to be one of the ones that will try the odd Hollywood pass, but whether they come off is another story.
Well, it doesn't really matter.
Not
If he
CJ
doesn't really.
Hamilton's playing on the
Sorry, I was gonna say that.
Have I nicked it off you?
It's like you nicked my
Nick your thunder, did I? Stole it.
background. Right up front, Sean. Explain
what,
to me
number
how
9?
this 3 works up front as well in a 4-3-3.
Well, you've got a left winger, a striker, and a right winger, but the 2
Alright.
wingers invert.
Right, okay.
Or they like to, anyway.
So CJ's one of them, yeah?
Jesus Christ. It's for me, it's Corbeanu on the left, Bowler on the right, and Jerry up top.
No. No,
He's
I'm not down with that.
He needs to play. He needs to play.
Well,
if you're not,
Bowler's on the right.
you're
Let's
playing
get
Medina,
Bowler.
aren't
Okay,
He's
yeah, let's get
definitely
Bowler's starting. That's a given, isn't it?
There's no doubt.
because it's who you play in front in it. Because if you want Jerry, then Jerry can't play on the left.
Can I floated an insane theory,
Ah.
which is that Shane Lavery missed that many chances on Tuesday night that he just can't miss anymore. So therefore, he should play up front. Because I thought Lavery was unlucky. I mean, he was also bad, but he was unlucky as well as bad in terms of his finishing. And the one thing that I thought Lavery had about, I think he had, including the penalties, 8 half-decent efforts to score, or 8 half-decent chances to score a goal. When was the last time any of our strikers have had like more than 2 efforts on goal? And I think I have to credit him with the way he ran really well and the way he showed, and sort of the way that Patino and Carey also play is they need somebody making those runs. And
Mitch, just to interrupt, it doesn't help when CJ Hamilton's putting the ball behind him when he's screaming for it. He got into space, he's got into position. He's going, just put it there, put it on the 6-yard box, and he's fucking pulled it back to no one.
There was
There
was one point in the game where he missed one, and their keeper actually got up and put his arm round him, and they were laughing together because it was getting hilarious, the fact that he wasn't scoring. And I thought, apart from putting the ball in the net, I thought he ran his arse off. And one thing I really like about a striker, going back to Armand, the thing I really liked about Armand is it didn't matter how many he missed. He just turned up and had a go at the next one. And other strikers go missing. And I love Yates to bits, but Yates has a habit of playing a really nice technical game, but not actually having a shot.
What about playing Lavery on one of the wings?
No. Definitely not.
No, because he's not good enough footballer to do that. If you're going to play Lavery, play him down the middle. That's what I think.
I just don't think Swansea is his game, because we're not going to be getting after them and pressing from the front. So
maybe we need to, though. Maybe we need to. We don't want to play Swans at their own game, do we?
Yeah, but if you think about what we did, the whole point of playing Swansea and the way we beat them the time at Bloomfield Road was that we sat off and kind of waited for triggers to then press them when they brought the ball further forward. We allowed them the initial possession so that they brought it out, and then we countered at pace. And I don't know. I'm not keen on any of the strikers, is my point. I think there's kind of this debate of like, should we play Yates or Medine, or should we play Lavery or Yates or whatever? But for me, we just need a quality number 9 that's better than all of them, because none of them are particularly good enough to be a consistent starter in the Championship. And we need a new striker. And obviously we've been trying to get a new striker. Failed so far. But we need a new number 9. And that's why I'm kind of like a bit passive in a debate with this, because I just think we need a new player.
But we haven't got
a new player.
Yeah,
we haven't got a new player.
Of the players we've got, which of those strikers, on paper, theoretically, based on what you've seen in the past, which of those players has the attributes to play the number 9 role, or the closest thing in your view? Because in mine, it's Lavery. And I find it baffling that he's played an entire pre-season without playing Lavery in his position. We play Lavery in his position. No wonder the lad's out of form and missing chances. Everyone's going, oh, Lavery's shit. Well, no wonder he's shit, because he hasn't played up front since God knows when Critch last played him up front, in about April. He's been on the left wing, coming off the bench and going on the left wing in a position he's never played in his career. And then he plays against Barrow and he makes more chances than the rest, or he has more chances than the rest of the strikers have actually managed to make for themselves, or in their movement in the whole of pre-season and the games I've seen combined. So I would give Lavery a go. And this is me arguing that we don't pick Gary Medine. What's going on?
That Mitch monologue has convinced me as well. +1 for Lavery.
I'm still on Yates, because I think that he's probably the most intelligent striker we have on the pitch. And I think his link-up play is good, and we look a lot more fluid in a front three with Yates. I feel like especially if you've got two advanced midfielders, especially someone like Patino, who has played with elite footballers to an extent, and he's trained with these sorts of players. I think Yates' movement makes a difference that other strikers don't quite have, and in those moments that we've seen in flashes.
Plays well
We've
with
seen
Bowler.
that when he gets it was always when Keshi was in the 10 or in like an advanced central position that him and Keshi would click and it would work, and they were just on a different wavelength. And I think that Yates can do that with the two advanced central midfielders that perhaps none of the other strikers can. I think that's probably a bit more important.
Yeah, Stoke away, basically.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So Sean Yates, Tim, you've got the casting vote.
I actually would play Yates and Lavery in that front three. So I don't know how that splits the vote, but I would probably go Yates with the central role.
I would do it the other way around. I would go Yates left, Lavery centre.
And I can see to be honest, I would see the fluidity of them of them mixing it up, and despite the fact Appleton doesn't want them to do this, I want them to press like buggery from the front, all three of them.
And Yates is good at that.
Yeah, well, both Yates and Lavery are, and Bowler is, to be fair. So, and the three of them can interchange, and that would be my front three. But so I don't know how that fits in with who you put where, but I don't think it actually matters too much.
I mean, as Mark said, we could always put Gaz on the left wing.
He would be great left winger, wouldn't he?
Yeah, you've convinced me, Tim, with that. Everyone else happy with that? Yates on the left. Lavery in the middle, interchanging.
My poor Theo sat on the bench. What have you done to him?
He's not done enough, Sean.
He has done enough. He got himself about, and he looks like at some stages he doesn't quite know what's happening, but he will do eventually. I'm convinced of it.
As I say, he's by numbers. He's just a CJ upgrade. CJ plus.
So CJ Hamilton is definitely not starting then. Come on.
It's a shame.
Are we happy with that then?
Yeah, we've only got the 14 more topics to talk about on this podcast, so I'm quite happy with that. And we're going to get through all of them, no matter how long it takes.
I'll
Are
quickly
you
do
enjoying your day off from Blackpool related?
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Right, I've screenshotted that. I'll send it out to the masses, see what they think. Right, next topic we've got to talk about is Burnley ticket prices. Mitch, you give us your thoughts on this. Tell the listeners, viewers, if they're not aware, what's going on and reviews on it.
So essentially the tickets for Burnley are, I think, 30 quid, but the context of that is, as some reporter on Lancs Live put an article out to reveal, the club turned down a reciprocal ticket deal, which is not the first time. So they turned down, I think it's a 25 quid offer that Burnley make, which is if we'll let you in for 25 quid if you let us in for 25 quid. And obviously people may also be aware that Reading had a £20 ticket offer that they were sort of going around the championship clubs offering 20 quid reciprocal deals, and we turned that down as well. So my thoughts are, people seem to be surprised that the Burnley tickets were pricey. But my thought is, well, if we're not going to do reciprocal ticket deals, then this is inevitably what we're going to have to put up with, which is pricey away games. And generally, I know there's a few people that kind of specialise in going to away games, but generally speaking, people who go to plenty of away games are already paying quite a lot to go to plenty of home games. So it's kind of the most loyal, committed, able to go, however you put it. The people who are already paying the most money into the club that are getting the brunt of that. And it also concerns me because, things ain't cheap at the moment. Energy caps, fuel bills, train prices, nothing is cheap at the moment. Everything's getting more expensive, and the club can talk about its ambitions, and I understand that, and I get that there's investment, and I get that we've got a long history of underinvestment, and I get there's a context, and I get that we keep competing against people with parachute payments and so on and so forth. But ultimately, football is fucking expensive and life's very expensive at the moment. If we're getting to a point where, people are going to stop going to away games. Sorry, that was probably longer than it should have been, John, but I think that covers it.
Oh, it's quite succinct for a Mitch monologue. Tim, your thoughts on this? Yeah,
I want to add my 2 pence worth. I've got to say, I don't always agree with everything that Matt says, but I 100% endorse everything that he said there. There's clearly a policy at the club that they want to maximise the away revenue from away fans coming to Blackpool. But I think, firstly, it's short-sighted because it presupposes that on an average game, the same number of people are going to come and pay 30 quid as would come and pay 20 or 25 pound, which isn't automatic. Plus, you've got the secondary spend if you get more coming. And we should be filling that away and every single week and maximising beer sales and the secondary spend as much as we can, not just for the club, but also for local hotels and whatever. Secondly, the reality is, and Mitch has picked up on this, for every £5 extra we take off away fans, our away fans are having to reciprocate. So, we go to Reading, we're now paying 30 quid. We go to Burnley, we're paying 30 quid. Now, some are better placed to make that additional expenditure than others. But if you're a family and Mitch...
100 quid in it before you've even bought anything.
100, 120 quid even if there's 4 of you going. And that's before you've paid for your fuel, before you've paid for your coach fares, before you've paid
200 quid for a day, innit?
Yeah.
200 quid.
Well, listen. Now I don't want to just club bash here. There's a solution for me, and the solution is that you offer some form of reward or acknowledgement for those who are travelling away. Because, listen, they were properly. I say they. I saw quite often. I was there. They were the proper 12th man last year. And if we're going to end up halving our away support because of these ridiculous policies, we need to think creatively that if we want to carry on charging what we're charging to away fans, but want to keep people engaged and keep people going at what is a very, very difficult time. Once October comes and these ridiculous fuel prices kick in, those who are paying mortgages and those costs are going to have even less money to spend. My creative solution, I don't know whether it's achievable, is to offer some form of voucher to every away fan who goes away that's redeemable at a home game. So they can buy a pint or 2 if it stretches to that. They can go and put it against a shirt. They can go and put it against anything in the club shop. They can buy a couple of pies with it, whatever it is. But we need to think about something creatively, because I tell you what, we're going to absolutely crucify our away support. A lot of them are young lads. If they're getting knocked 30 quid every time they go away, and that is the net result of this policy, and it stinks, and we need to sort it out.
I think I just wanted to point out the Gary Ford's comment about the fact that Blackpool's kids' prices are cheaper for the away support. So essentially, what he's meaning there is that Burnley don't have an under-13s category for their tickets, and we do. And ours are about, I think they were £9 for the games recently, but I think Burnley is a category above, so it's a slight price increase. So I think it got about £9-10 essentially for the under-13s category, and Burnley don't have that. So anyone that's under 13 is still paying the under 18 ticket price, which I think was about 18 quid from Burnley. But what the point of that is that if we'd have accepted the offer, it would have been £10 for under 18s from Burnley. So that would have cancelled that out anyway. And it would have been the same price for the under 13s tickets at Blackpool. So that point, I get the point he's making, but if the offer had been accepted, then it would have cancelled itself out anyway.
I know Tim said he doesn't want a club bash, and I think he's come up with a very creative solution. But ultimately, that solution doesn't actually reduce the cost. It just makes the value better, and cost and value aren't the same. So if, it makes it worthwhile going, but if you can't afford the initial outlay, then it doesn't solve your problem, if that makes sense. I think it's a very creative solution. And I suppose I am going to now, I'll hypothetically club bash a little bit, in the sense that it could be cynically read that the club's policy is, Blackpool is one of the lowest income areas in the country. I'm not bashing Blackpool. It's a town I love greatly. And it's a town, and in my work and life, I've invested a great deal of time into trying to, care for and so on. However, the fact is it's a very low income area. So if we say, no, we're not going to take this reciprocal pricing offer from, say, QPR or Reading or whoever it is, because we want to charge their away fans, in a way, it's hitting our fans more than it is hitting the fans of, leafy suburban clubs in the south, because there is more money in those places. And that's not a criticism of Blackpool. That's a historic fact. And it's true. And it could appear as if the board don't really, shrug. This is our policy, and I get the context. And to a certain extent, I'm trying to sort of not be reasonable on purpose to be provocative, but that's kind of what it looks like to me.
Is it non-Blackpool people making the decisions? Maybe, I don't know, because it doesn't. If you live here, you know what it's like. I might do the job I do, but I bloody work on Lytham Road every single day of the week, and I see the deprivation all around me. And you can't wave a magic wand, but what you can do is make sure that we are affordable and
we're accessible.
We're accessible, and all we're doing. Listen, and I don't know whether anyone's listening, but if the board or anybody from the board listening, this policy is wrong and it needs to be changed, because you are directly hitting Blackpool fans in the pocket, and you don't think you are, but you are. And if you don't sort it out, we're going to have pitiful away tendencies, and you're going to lose the vibe that we had and we have had for the last 2 seasons. And because those young lads, I've only got so much money to put in the pockets. I say young lads because they're the ones who tend to go in and tend to help get that atmosphere going. And, you can't have 16, 17-year-old lads paying the prices that we're now being quoted because of this short-sighted and to be honest, it's a policy that lacks integrity for me.
Just for the sake of, I guess, people that aren't fully aware of what the club's sort of response was, I'll give it a summary, I guess, is that they were saying that they'll always look for opportunities to help supporters with costs where they can. They said that the coaching price is £15 coached price for the trip to Burnley and the £20 cost for the trip to Stoke were sort of examples of this. I think by all accounts, the Stoke one was probably going to be a fair bit more, but they kind of subsidised it. Blackpool aren't able to benefit from parachute payments, Premier League subsidies, and as such, have to run the club in a way that works best for us in order to be able to compete with bigger clubs within the division, and that the owner continues to fund large-scale capital projects in the background that will enable the club to have a firm footing for decades to come. So that was what they essentially said in response to.
Well, I would say how many Stoke, as an example, how many from Stoke went on the club coaches? 5%, 10%, maybe a push. I'd say probably 5 is about fair. So 95% of those who attended Stoke, I know Stoke doesn't fall into the category of the games we're talking about, but 95% of those who attended Stoke wouldn't benefit from the subsidisation of coaches by the club. And I don't think the club would put that on that many coaches that would allow everybody that was travelling to go on them. I doubt it. So for me, if they don't want to change this policy, and I would suggest that's the starting point. If you don't want to change the policy, they've got to think creatively as to how they can compensate everybody who goes to away games. Because if we're down in London, people, listen, we've got a very healthy London support. They're not going to get a coach from Blackpool. There's plenty of, Mitch, how many times you got a coach?
I don't live in Blackpool. So
I know, so you're not going to drive to Blackpool to get a coach to save £5, are you?
No.
I'm not going to go on a Blackpool coach just because if I go, I'll go on the one from Polton or I'll drive. And so, listen, and it's not about me. It's about having that 1,500, 2,000 at most of the away games that we want to see, that create the atmosphere, that help make the day, that fill that concourse, to have a bit of a laugh before the game. It's about the whole picture of an away game. And if we're pricing people out, we're going to be the losers, not the fact that we think we're being clever charging an extra £5 to away fans.
And I think, to be fair to the club statement, I think, I do understand that this is somebody who's putting a lot of money in, who's building a training ground, who's we're going to build an East Stand and all of that. But what is the heart of football is exactly what you just said. Turning up that bit where you go through the turnstiles and you get in that concourse and there's hundreds and thousands at big games there, and people come from all over. They come from there's a bunch of right likely lads there. There's someone's gran there. There's some oddballs with flasks in the corner talking to each other. There's middle-aged blokes. There's families. It's a community of people, and that accessibility. If the capital outlay means that we're not accessible to the community, that does not chime with what the values that were cited when we started. And I think I agree entirely with what you said before. I feel like it's a misjudged policy.
And just to answer David's question, David, we are 3 games into this. Are we 3 games in? 3rd game of the season. We've had 2 reciprocal offers already, and we've turned them both down.
And the context of that Reading offer was they offered 20 quid, and I think 5 or 6 clubs took it, which suggests that there was potentially further potential for more reciprocal offers, because why would those clubs accept an offer with Reading and then not with us, if that made sense?
Reading
it's also worth knowing they
aren't
have parachute
recipients
payments.
Parachute payments either. I
No.
was just going to say that.
I mean, let's be fair, because I've just been quite strident. Let's be fair. Reading are also one of the absolute basket case financial clubs.
They're on their
that
arse.
spend way over. They're Reading are not a model of financial probity. And I'm sure if Mr. Sadler was on here, he'd say, "Shut up, you funny bald man. You don't know what you're talking about. You want us to be Reading," and he'd have a fair point. And I acknowledge that fully. But at the same time, I value the fact that Blackpool is what it is so much. And I think we all do. And I think I have a relatively comfortable lifestyle. I ain't rich, but I don't think shit. Can I put the heating on? I'm okay. And I'm looking at my outgoings thinking, can I really justify driving all the way to Birmingham? Can I really, can I really go all the way to the northeast at the weekend because I've got a family and there's expenses and outgoings and I can't, football can't be this selfish thing that I spend all my money on because there's other people who I've got to, and if I'm thinking that with my position of relative comfort, then there's a hell of a lot of people who will not be going to away games next year. And as somebody pointed out in the chat, that's going to work for away fans as well.
I think that's the point where we are unique compared to the vast majority of the teams in this country, I think, personally, in terms of the situation and the makeup of the town. And I think that probably isn't taken into account as much as everything else. And as Mitch says, as much as obviously we've got large-scale capital projects and such of the like, if doing that compromises on the entirety of what we're doing here and what we're about, then I mean, is it worth it? Because what you're going to tell the fan down the street that perhaps can't afford to pay for a ticket anymore that the players have got a nice training ground? It's
a training ground, and it's a training ground that none of the community can use as well.
Well, we'll have a really shiny training ground so we can train up the next Rob Apter and not play him. No, I'm getting silly. I'm getting daft. It is that long-term thing is important, but I think Sean put it very succinctly and beautifully then in terms of there's a balance between access and the off-pitch ambition.
I suppose there's also when you're earning 300 grand a year, you're kind of a bit disconnected from what's happening on the ground, in people's salaries and the price of fuel, etc. Bit kind of like Boris Johnson's doesn't know the price of a loaf of bread, does he?
I think it's, for me, it might be more that there's not quite an understanding of the demographic of our town, it's not all about how much you earn. It's about knowing the area, and the area is, listen, it's well documented that we've got some of the, never mind some, quite a few of the poorest wards in the whole of the country, and we've got people within those wards who find by hook or by crook the money to attend away games, and we're slapping another £5 or £10 on their costs every game. Then, as Matt very eloquently put it, it ain't gonna happen. So I just think that it's just wrong, and it's pretty obvious it's wrong. We think we're taking advantage of away fans and charging top dollar, but we're not. We're actually slapping our own fans in the pocket.
But
every time we do it.
I guess, Tim, you've also got to think about the fact that we're stiffing away fans. I mean, we try and, I don't know, there's a bit of a disconnect between fucking them over as well, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I
think it's a given. That's what we're doing. We're charging top dollar because I think that as I understand the policy is Blackpool's one of the first games that away teams look for on when the fixtures come out, and they're not going to be bothered whether they pay 25 quid or 30 quid. They're going to come anyway. Now, that's my understanding. I understand that's the rationale, or I suspect, if I don't understand it, I suspect it's heavily featured in the rationale, but it completely ignores the impact on our fans. I do also have empathy for the away fans as well, and I'd also think that very simplistic approach ignores price elasticity, which is, in simple terms, if you price people out, less people come. So if you've got 1,500 paying 30 quid or 2,000 paying 25 quid, you get the same amount of money through if my maths is right, you roughly get the same amount of money through the turnstiles, but you also get the secondary spend as well of them buying beers, food, and all the other, program, whatever else they might buy. So you actually do better by having the 2,000 there than the 1,500 there, or whatever my figures were. So you can't just say we're getting an extra £5, because you're not getting an extra £5. You get an extra £5, less the ones who don't come, less the secondary spend for the ones who don't come. Because I know when we've had leads before, we've said not going there, not paying their stupid
38
prices.
quid, wasn't it?
Yeah, but whatever. But it's all relative. So at whatever price point you've got, clubs, some people say I'm not going there because it's 30 quid. Where they might have come if it was 25 quid. So you are losing. If you lower your price point, there'll be people who will come who wouldn't otherwise have come. So it's always netting off against the £5 that you're losing. It's always netting off against that. So the differential's never £5 times the number of people there. It don't work like that unless it's a premium game like Preston or and maybe arguably Burnley, where we're maxing out on the away fans, but you've still got to think about the impact on your fans. And we're getting clobbered on a week on Saturday because we're adopting this policy that we're going to max out on the away fan support. So every one of us is paid a £5 more. So there's 2,000 going. So there's £10,000 more being spent by Blackpool fans than needs to be spent.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money when you tot it up over the season. So that's one game. So you top that up times 10, times 15, however many games we could have had a reciprocal arrangement. And for every fan who goes, then it starts to tot up.
Right, let's move on then. I think we've all had our say. Very, very well said, gents. I heartily agree with everything you've said. Right, what are we on now? Hour and 40. It's the longest pod ever. They might be breaking a record here. So let's talk about the final piece of news that's come out today, which really annoyed me when I read this. Made light of it there, saying Pyrotechnics.
No, you can't.
But the news has broke today that the club has banned the lad who held up a smoke device in his hand at which game was it again?
It was the Reading, the opening
Reading game. Didn't throw it, didn't chuck it on the pitch, just held it up and it went out. And they've banned him for 3 years. So this is all a directive that's come from the EFL and the FA. So the EFL and the FA are going hard on a lad holding a smoke device in his hand, banning him for 3 years, but they don't go in hard against convicted rapists that rape clubs also.
Or Scottish brethren who hold flares up at a game and create a pyrotechnic display.
I was gobsmacked when I read this. I just think it's an
Actually,
it's an absolute disgrace.
I think I've said in the chat. I actually saw the incident play out. So the guy was in B block and just in between B and C. We scored. Is when we scored against Reading, and it was a bit bizarre because he was there. He didn't try and cover his face. He didn't try and hide. He was sat in his own seat. He just lit this flare and just held it. And I thought,
no, it wasn't a flare, Tim. It was a smoke bomb.
Oh, smoke bomb.
Yeah.
But whatever it was, he held it and he didn't let go of it. I think he did towards the end, but he didn't throw it. He didn't do anything with it. He sat there with a big cheesy grin on his face. And I thought, you've been a bit stupid here, mate, because you're going to get done for that. Even if they don't come for you straight away, they're going to come for you. So he was. Listen, beyond doubt, he's stupid. Beyond doubt, he needs dealing with. Beyond doubt, we need to stop this. We've seen with Speedy Paul Markham, got his hand blown off. I think we talked about this in another pod. It needs to be stopped. But, and there's a big but coming with this, I think there's ways of dealing with it. Yes, they're coming down hard. And me and Mitch have both been trawling the internet 2 hours before this pod to see whether we could find any justification for the 3-year ban. Now, about 4 years ago, the directive was it should be a minimum 3-year ban. But there's been another directive since that didn't say that. And this directive doesn't say that. And I just think...
That's just a directive, though, Tim. A directive.
Yes,
it's not an order.
It's not compulsory.
No.
The Guardian on the latest directive that was issued in July, and the distinction as to why the Rangers fans weren't pulled on it was because it wasn't governed by the EFL, is that that compulsory bans. It doesn't mention 3 years. So we've banned this lad who, he's a bit soft for doing it. But to ban a lad for 3 years for watching football because of that, and he may face prosecution anyway and get a ban from the magistrates that overrides the discussion we're having anyway. But the reality of the situation is what he did does not justify the punishment that he's now facing, in my opinion, as somebody actually saw it play out. Whether the club could consider reducing it, because I think the directive suggests that if somebody shows contrition, they can reduce it down. But most certainly, there's nothing in the current directive that I could find that says it needs to be 3 years. And I use the analogy, it's like a bit like when the EU directives came out. The UK seems to be all over it, imposing a whole series of stuff that implemented the directive to the letter. And this looks like we're showing the zeal that the UK government seemed to show for EU directives that the rest of the EU just bloody ignored. So we seem to, for me, we just seem to be, we're overzealous, I think is what I would suggest. And I think he's a young lad. He was probably 20, guessing he's 23, 24. He should know better. But do we really need to ban him for 3 years? That's what I'm really saying.
I also think there's a sort of moral, what's the word? Double standard to some extent in football, in that, yeah, of course, as you said before, there was, we've had a horrible incident outside our club and nobody wants people being injured. But there are sort of, there's this debate about there being different types of devices and flares and smoke bombs.
Didn't that bloke pick up a lit flare that was off the ground?
Yeah. And there's two things that strike me. Is one, in some countries, pyrotechnic displays are almost kind of part of the football culture, and it's almost like the drugs legalization argument is that whilst you make it this naughty thing that you mustn't do, and you'll get your hands chopped up if you do it, and 3 years in naughty football prison, then that almost makes it more attractive, and it makes it it's something where, like with flags and stuff, there's if there was an area of the, I'm probably, there's an area of the ground where you could have a pyrotechnic display and it was licensed and you could certain things. In some ways, it would almost lose its appeal to people because it's like this symbol of sort of rebellion, in the same way that if drugs were legalized, then they would probably be less dangerous. The second thing is what really, really irks me, and this really irks me, is when you get people from the AFL morally lecturing you about, oh, well, you see, people have to understand how dangerous these things are. And yet football is plastered with adverts for gambling that, you know, every club you go to basically is an invite to get pissed. And as somebody who has lost a relative to suicide from being alcoholism and gambling, you know, it's people literally die from that shit. And I know flares are dangerous, but there's this moral lecturing, superior sort of element in the way people talk about it. And I just want to say,
signaling, it's called.
Yeah, well, it's. I feel like if there was money in pyrotechnic displays, then suddenly, you know, football would be doing it all the time. That's how cynical I feel about the people who govern the game. They're cowards.
Pyrotechnic display sponsored by.
Yeah, they're cowards.
If they could monetize it, they would.
Yeah, exactly. They're cowards. They pick on young lads who have done something stupid, and they do that to try and signpost that they're governing the game. Governing the game is not criminalising young lads who go to the football. Governing the game is sorting this shit show out that means we've got this deeply uncompetitive football that's played for the benefit of TV channels and a global audience, and the actual people who go to games in about 88 clubs in this country have got fuck all chance of winning anything. And if they want to actually govern the game, they could start by governing the game instead of just criminalising young kids. I think I've made my point on that one.
And very eloquently as well, I have to say. And I also would add that the same lad, no doubt, watched the fantastic pyro display put on by the Rangers fans 2 games earlier. And there was a complete soft approach taken towards it. Nobody was arrested. Nobody was carted off, and it looked quite good. Now, whether you think it's the right, whether it was safe, whether it was right, it's another matter. But he's a young, impressionable lad. I don't know what his motivation was, but he's probably seen that and thought, "Oh, I'm going to do that," and he's done it. And he's an idiot, and he's going to get done for it. He should have been brought into the club. He should have been hauled over the coals. They maybe should have said, like, you know, you can help clean bird shit up for the next four weekends, and you do that and don't do it again. And but if you do it again, you're in for the high jump. And that would have felt the thing.
There's no education about these things, so there should be that initial step. Is you've just got an education program of how to you know, but because we're so anti-pyro and you can't be seen to be educating people how to correctly use these things or to do things properly or why they shouldn't be using them at all, because we just, this is the latest thing, isn't it? It's like the kid pitch invasions that for some reason keep happening. That was the thing, and now this will be the thing at the moment, and then for a few weeks there'll just be like a camera in the stands at Sky every time there's a flare or a smoke bomb going off in the stand, and they'll be pointing, the commentators will be tutting it, and then 3, 4, 5 months down the line they'll be commentating on a European game and then telling us how such an amazing spectacle it is. It's just the thing at the moment, and they pick a thing to focus on, as Mitch says, to avoid the actual fundamental issues that are wrong with football at the moment, because it's a lot easier thing to do and it allows them to just get away with things. If that's taking the attention of the media at the moment, then it takes it away from all these ultimately other things that are apparently wrong with football that are actually the fundamental issues that we should be addressing.
Without going on a complete tangent, you know, the sponsors have been waved through for Premier League clubs that are literally front companies for extremely dark sort of Eastern gambling syndicates with links that you don't even want to think about. But that's fine. You know, God forbid a lad holds up a smoke bomb.
Birmingham didn't even know who their owner was until about 6 weeks ago. Some guy on Twitter had finally tracked down who the actual person was because it was a front for something else. So, as you say, that we know what they're like. We know what they are. They're never going to change. And this is just the latest fad thing that they're going to be targeting for what purpose? I just think it's a purpose to get rid of fans in grounds that are probably the most vocal ones, or the ones that are, it's not going to be the middle class suit that's going to be getting banned from the ground anyway, is it? And I just feel like it's always going to be that way. They're going to try and it's going to just become more corporate as we go along, isn't it? The game and the fundamental values that we want. I mean, look at the last 3 topics we've just addressed. That kind of says it all.
We just want
monetarization of the game, I think it's called, isn't it?
Yeah.
Want nice people lapping up those interfacing marketing boards that rotate while you're watching the game, so that you can take the message. And I'm not blaming our club for that. I'm not blaming our club for that. Tom's question before about do we actually know if the club gave the 3-year ban? I think both me and Tim look, and I probably defer to Tim in terms of the word ability to read the wording, but I could not work out from reading the different statements whether the 3-year ban was an edict or whether it's not. I don't think it would be fair to comment on what the club.
The only reference we could find was back in 2017, wasn't it, when an edict issued then said that 3 years should be the default with the opportunity to reduce it if contrition was shown.
And I couldn't work out if the new sort of thing was like a strengthening and reiteration of the 2017 proposal, or whether it was a completely separate proposal. And I've got to say that we've got, Tim's a solicitor and I have a passable education. And if the two of us have read what the EFL, FA, and I think the FSA had actually put the name on it as well, have put out, and we can't work out what the punishment is and the standard punishment is, then what chance has a lad just going along to the football, possibly in ignorance of the consequences, got of what the circumstances and what the punishment is? We can't actually work out what the rules are and what's expected of clubs and what the consequences of certain actions are. So it's just
that's the thing as well, isn't it? If he goes to the Rangers friendly, watches that happen across from him, and then 2 weeks later goes, "Oh, we should try that." But now it's not.
Exactly, of course,
now it's not okay. So it's just I don't care when the ruling came in. It's ridiculous that is the case. And I still reiterate that the stewarding of the North Stand would have been completely different if we'd have done what Rangers fans did compared to what they did. So
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
There was absolutely
we know what it's like.
There was no attempt at all from the stewards to stop Rangers from doing it. I'm not that I wanted them to stop doing it. I thought it was brilliant what they did, but there was no attempt whatsoever from the stewards to stop the Rangers fans doing what they do. And as soon as Blackpool fans do it, they're on some like a flash, aren't they? And if you look at Phil Hornby's comment, will away fans be punished, or will they just get away with it? I think, Phil, they will just get away with it because they just seem to be targeting the home fans.
Well, when the police are stood in the East Stand reception area, halfway house bit, and their camera is pointed directly at the North Stand rather than at the away fans directly behind them, I think we kind of know where priorities lie from authorities at Bloomfield Road.
And on so I think I used to have the how wrong is that sound effects that was going to play to accompany this, but I've only got this one.
Big fat boo.
Big fat boo. Right. Anyone else got anything else to say before we go? This has got to be a record, nearly 2 hours. We covered everything.
It's good to have a rant every now and again, though, isn't it? Don't you think?
A rant a day keeps the doctor away.
Right,
I think we're going to call...
No. Should we do a quick QPR introducing safe standing at their ground for our game on Tuesday night? So that'll be interesting to see how that works.
Go on, Sean. Elaborate.
Obviously, I don't think we're in favour of it by all accounts. So obviously, it seems like a no-brainer that it should be introduced into Bloomfield Road.
Massively for I've been championing this since 2013, albeit then it couldn't happen. It can happen now. I know BST have raised the issue with the club because obviously when the East Stand's built, I think it should be the North, and they'd have to. But you could use the seats from the North in the East so that you don't lose them. Cost less than £100 a seat to achieve. I think it could be a fan-led initiative to try and make this happen. It could be sponsored. because you can put sponsors' names on the back of the seats. There's all sorts of things you can do. Club needs to sit down with John Darsh, who's like the doyen of these things, and he's been at it for donkey's years. He's the guy who sat under the San Thai car park with his little mock-up of one in 2013, and he's now, he's been campaigning ever since. So why wouldn't we want it? Why would we want? We've touched on it in other pods, haven't we? But now it's all being rolled out. We should be, in my view, looking to do something sooner rather than later to make sure that we retain the atmosphere that we need to make the most of what we've got with the greatest sum of our parts, and the fans are part of that. And
we're going to need the atmosphere if we can't have smoke bombs or pyros. If you're going to get a 3 year ban.
We certainly are, aren't we?
Right, gents. I think we'll call it there, shall we? Nearly 2 hours. Great conversation, though. I thoroughly enjoyed that. So well done, everybody. If you are watching this on YouTube, please do like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell, and you will get notified when brilliant shows like this get pushed out to YouTube. Apologies about Facebook this evening. There's been a bit of a cock up with that, but we'll hopefully remedy that. We'll be coming on a match reaction show after the Swansea 0-0 draw, possibly on Sunday or Monday, but we'll be in touch. So as I said, thanks for watching, thanks for downloading, and up the pool.
Up the pool.
Oh.